Hello everyone, hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. It is, what day are we doing? 13th of September, and you can feel, I think, the autumn closing in. Certainly here in the UK, there was a crisp, fresh smell to the air this morning. I hope everything has been going well for you over the past week. I hope you were able to tune in and enjoy the Ancient Invisible Cities Cairo episode that was on the BBC in the UK, or if you're outside of the UK. Hello Philip, how are you doing? If you're outside of the UK, then I hope you were able to stream it through Amazon Video, or indeed you can get the DVD already that's ready, that's available for pre-order on Amazon, of all 3 episodes that will ship at the moment that the final one has gone out on the BBC. Hi Tony, how are you doing? Welcome. So it's a great pleasure to see you here, and if you haven't had a chance yet, do please register for live notifications for these live Q&As via the Facebook page. There's a post there that's been put up to show you how to do that so that you get instantaneous notifications when we go live, and we will then be able to spend the whole half hour together talking about your questions. As per last week, we're going to do some questions that have been coming in, and we're going to try and get through some of the backlog of questions that are building up, so thank you so much for sending those in. It's absolutely fantastic to see your questions. And then we're going to do a little bit of what's on around the world about the ancient world, and then a little bit of classics or ancient world in the news before finishing up with some thoughts about where we're going next week. So first question is from Alex Rook. Hi Catherine, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed the Cairo program. Thank you very much indeed. First question from Alex Rook. Who do you think is the greatest epic hero out of Odysseus or Aeneas, and why? Okay, so Odysseus, the hero of the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, and then Aeneas, the hero of Virgil's Aeneid. 2 different worlds, the Greek world and the Roman world. 2 very, very different heroes. Both go on journeys, both are traveling. Odysseus is seeking Nostos, in the Greek, for his return home. Aeneas is set on a divine quest to go and found a city, the city that will become Rome. Now, we were playing a little bit actually with this last week on Twitter. I don't know whether you saw, if you look for Twitter on the hashtag Ancient World on social media, I created a moment of it, and we were imagining what all these ancient characters would be like if they were on social media. And one person put up for Aeneas with his very complicated relationship status, particularly with Dido, Queen of Carthage, who he has to leave, and she sort of gets pretty upset about it all. He was going to have a Facebook status of his relationship status on Facebook was going to be simply, it's complicated. Hello Zio, following from sunny Milton Keynes. I'm so glad to hear that Milton Keynes is sunny today. Yeah, so out of the 2, I always have a real kind of love for Odysseus. The Odyssey was the text that I had to read the entirety of in ancient Greek as part of my final year of classic studies at Cambridge when I was an undergrad. Hi, Shan from Peterborough, how are you doing? Jackie, hello. You're going to be on a night shift tonight. Ouch, oh, you poor thing. Rest up. I hope things go well this evening. Hi, Becky. Hello. Hello, Katerina. Hello from Athens. Yasu Canada. So Odysseus, I remember reading that text and exploring it in detail and thinking about it for a long time. So Odysseus is always going to get my vote. But who would you vote for out of Odysseus and Aeneas as your greatest epic hero? It depends, of course, entirely on what you define as epic and what you define as a hero. Both have their flaws. Crucially, as characters, both have their plus points, and you have to balance up that kind of those 2 sides of each of those characters, and I think each one of us would probably come up with a different response. Richard, hello from Athens as well. Hello from Norway. How are you doing? Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you here for the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. We're doing a couple of questions here, and before I forget, also regarding Ancient Invisible Cities, don't forget to go to bbc.co.uk/history, and you can do that whatever country you're in, and you can see the 360 virtual reality videos that have been created as part of the program and narrated by me, where you can take a tour around ancient Egypt, ancient Cairo, ancient Athens, and ancient Istanbul in virtual reality, and you get to explore a little bit as I take you on a guided tour, and those are videos that are loaded via the BBC's YouTube channel, so you can access them in any country. They are absolutely fantastic and give you a sense of the stunning what can be done with the stunning technology that's been available to us in this program, all curated by the great ScanLab. These are a company that I've been working with on this series, Invisible Cities, right back since the first one, Rome's Invisible City, back in 2014, and they're an absolutely fantastic group of people. Ciao, Sebastiano, saluto, bacio di Dalia, grazie tanto. Tony, great to see you. Yeah, the VR, absolutely, the VR is extraordinary, and it's what's been wonderful to see over the past couple of years that we've been doing Invisible Cities is how the technology has grown. Each time we come back to do the next series of the programs, it is absolutely another step is possible, another thing is possible that just wasn't there before. So it's a constant surprise as much to us each time we come to do a series. What can we achieve this time? Hello from Crete, Sarah. How are you doing? Hello, hello. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so let's move on to another question. I'm going to go to one from Tracy Baker. Do you think that Alexander the Great would actually have achieved that much more, or had he peaked when he died? That's a good question, and of course, you read the ancient sources about Alexander the Great. He dies very young. He's in his early 30s, possibly of alcohol poisoning, possibly of being poisoned, possibly from a dreaded cold, possibly from just overexerting himself, conquering so much in so quick a time. And the sources are set you up a little bit, I think, to feel like Alexander is reaching the zenith of his ability. Not that his quest for conquest is dulled, but really you see that moment in the months before he dies where his men say to him, we don't want to go any further. And, he's there champing at the bit at the shores of the River Indus in India. Hi from Leeds, Julia. How are you doing? Not quite as exotic. Hey, but kind of Leeds is absolutely a cool place to be. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us, and everyone else. Thank you for joining the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. So we're talking about did Alexander the Great die as he peaked, or would he have gone on to achieve a lot more? And my point was simply that his men are at the point of a breaking point. For many, many reasons, they don't want to follow him any further. And at that point, he is strapped. He has to turn back. And of course, it's on his return journey back towards Greece that he dies. But there are indications that not only did he want to go further, he was realizing that actually the world didn't end where he and all his geographers and all the scholarship of the ancient Mediterranean world thought it ended, but it went on and on and on. And I think his ambition was to go further. But equally, there's talk in the ancient sources that potentially once he had conquered east, he had designs to then go west and conquer from Greece westwards. And Lord only knows what our history would be like if he had been given the opportunity to do so. Hi from County Durham, lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. And that ties in actually with another question that we had that came in from Richard Jones, that when is the first written mention by the ancient Greeks of Britain? And he's assuming that they never travelled there, so were they even aware of its existence? Well, this ties in with the Alexander the Great narrative, because around the time that Alexander the Great was conquering eastwards towards India, so this was in the latter part of the 4th century BC, in Marseille, in France, which was the ancient Greek port of Massalia, there was a man called Odysseus, and he set off on a voyage around this time. Hello, Mary from Canada. Thanks so much for joining us. Where do you suspect Alexander the Great may have been buried? Okay, well, this is a good question. We'll come back to this one, where he was buried in a state. There's tons of conspiracy theories there. Mateus, Brazil. Yes, thank you very much indeed. I'm totally sorry. That sounds like lots going on there for you. I hope that you and Brazil kind of finds its way forward soon enough. So Alexander the Great and Odysseus. So Odysseus sailed west, and he actually sailed out of the Mediterranean, and he sailed up the sort of Atlantic towards the Channel, and he is the first recorded person of the ancient Greeks to encounter Britain. And he didn't just encounter it, he most likely circumnavigated all the way around the British Isles and landed in different parts of the British Isles. So he describes the tin mines that were in Cornwall at that time. And Odysseus goes further than that. Once he's circumnavigated around Britain, he actually then heads up north towards the Arctic Circle. He describes the kind of the sea turning to ice and becoming frozen, before he then seems to sort of go back east and go into the Baltic and discover sources of amber in the Baltic, before then coming back into the Mediterranean and recording his adventures. Now, the original text that he created doesn't survive for us, but he's quoted by lots of other ancient geographers and writers that give us snippets and excerpts of his text. So we get this incredible narrative of an ancient Greek in the 4th century BCE exploring out to Britain. Hello, Alexandre. Not driving this time. Great. Well done. Well done for not trying to watch this and driving last time as well. And Jane, you've got a day off from Bristol. I'm so glad. And the sun's out for you. Thank you so much for spending some of it here with us at this live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. So at the same time that Alexander the Great was going east, you've got Pythias going west. And there are mutterings in the ancient sources that Pythias was doing this exploration westwards and doing the circumnavigation of Britain as a sort of advanced tour, a scouting party, if you like, for Alexander the Great, if he did get the opportunity to go westwards. So there's this tantalizing what if to history. Hello, Linda, how are you doing? You're watching from, rather than listening kind of in your conference call at work. I won't tell anyone if you don't tell anyone. Hello, kind of, how are you doing? So there are some wonderful moments at this point of the late 4th century BC, when really the margins of the Greek world are being expanded both east and west, and people's very understanding of what the world constituted of is changing. And that fits in with one other question from Rajrupa Das that came in, who said, would my research ever cover ancient Indo-Greek history? Absolutely, absolutely. So my book, Ancient Worlds in 2016, one of the things I was really interested in was the connections between ancient cultures, between the Mediterranean, Asia, India and China. And it was looking at that really important period after Alexander the Great gets to the shores of the River Indus in India, and after his empire is then split up into the empires of many of his generals. What happens there in this kind of betwixt and between place between Central Asia and India? And you get lots and lots of interactions with the great Mauryan Empire of the time. You get lots of exchanges. You may remember from last time I mentioned Megasthenes, my favourite character, who sent as an ambassador from the Seleucid court on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean to the court of King Chandragupta at Pataliputra in India, one of the Mauryan kings. So there's tons of stuff and interaction going on between these two worlds at this time, and that will continue henceforth. Hello, Catherine from Glaswegian, living in Milton Keynes. Right, my God, there's lots of you in Milton Keynes today. Starting your final Open University module. Good luck, and good luck to all students if they are out there listening who are about to start university courses in classics over the next couple of weeks. I know we're very much looking forward to welcoming everyone to Warwick Classics who are starting with us, and I can't wait to get teaching there in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to be doing not just the introductory modules for that we have, such as Greek culture and society, but I'm also launching my new honours module, which is Ancient Global History, and this will be the only module in the UK, in any UK university, that's teaching at undergraduate level Ancient Global History, the connections between cultures between the Mediterranean, Asia, India and China. So that is going to be an incredibly exciting time. Hello, Marisa, you live in Lake Como. Oh, you lucky thing. I bet it's nice this time of year. Latifa, how are you doing? Hello, hello, hello. Thank you very much. Also, I'm going to be giving a shout out to the Women's Classical Committee in a second, so thank you very much for telling me about that. So yes, we move on for some questions to have a think about what's on in the classical world, and thank you for flagging some things this week. So as I just mentioned, Latifa's written in asking to flag the work of the Women's Classical Committee in the UK, and this is an incredibly important project. They've got two major things on at the moment. The first is the Wikipedia project, so they're making sure that women in classics and female classicists throughout the ages are sufficiently and properly represented on Wikipedia, which is a fantastic project and very important. And also, of course, they are helping with the REF consultation. So the REF, which if you mention to any university academic, academic will have their kind of eyes going slightly wide. The research excellence framework, we're all gunning towards the next assessment date, which is in 2021, and we're all starting to think about how best that we represent not just the research that we individually do and as a department that we do, but also thinking about the impact that we individually have on the wider world, and how do we go about telling that story of impact and showing the evidence that we're having impact on the wider world, and thus, as a result, thinking about and justifying the position of academics and universities in society in the 21st century. So if you want to know more about Women in Classics, you can have a look at them on Twitter at Women in Classics, and also Facebook, the Women's Classical Committee. Another piece of what's on that's come in from Sheila Finley. Ancient Delos. Oh, one of my favourite places in the Mediterranean. Delos is a small island, as many of you may know, off Mykonos. So if you go to party, at least one of those days, take a small boat from Mykonos and go over to Delos, which the entire island is an archaeological site. So you can't stay overnight on the island of Delos. All tourists have to be off by 4 o'clock in the afternoon and back to Mykonos. And it is an incredible site. I was very, very lucky when I was doing some research about Delos back a couple of years ago to be able to stay in the only place that you can stay on the island, which is the archaeological dig house that's run by the French archaeologists who dig the site. And we had this incredible experience that after 4 o'clock, when the last tourist boat left, you had an island to yourself. We felt very, very blessed. An island with incredible archaeology as well. A place where you could be diving into the sea off one of the beaches, and you would literally dive into this crystal clear water and see a bit of ancient sculpture sitting on the seabed waiting for you. Quite an amazing moment. So yeah, ancient Delos, Sheila Finley tells us, its theatre is reopening for the second time in 2,100 years for an opera performance. So if you can, get your skates onto Greece and to Delos. The new one-act opera, Hera, is to be performed in the archaeological site on the island on October 6th to 7th. Wow. Oh, if term hadn't started, now I'm feeling a bit sad that term has started. Maybe I could try and get all my students to come out. We could do a quick trip to Greece to go and see this fantastic experience. Watching a modern performance in a millennia-old theatre. There can't really be anything better than that. Hello from Atlanta, Gretchen. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you very much indeed for coming and joining us. So if you can, October 6th, 7th, get to Delos. Get your tickets to see the new one-act opera, Hera, the wife of the king of the gods, Zeus. Thank you very much for letting us know about that. And then also, as well, some of you may have seen, there's an exhibition on at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, Antinous, Boy Made God. Now, Antinous, of course, is famous as being an extremely attractive young man from the era of the Emperor Hadrian, and being closely, romantically, in many cases, according to the sources, involved with the Emperor Hadrian. And he has an incredible sculptural record. There were many sculptures of him placed all around the ancient Greek worlds, many by the Roman Emperor Hadrian, and indeed you can see some of them in this wonderful exhibition at the Ashmolean that's running from the 5th of September until the 24th of February next year. Hello, Alexandra from Romania. Great to see you, like kind of thing. Saying you're going on the 29th. Where are you going on the 29th? Are you going to Delos? No, you're going to see the exhibition at the Ashmolean. I hope you are indeed, and enjoy it. So let's get back to a quick question. Hi Julie, how are you doing? We're running out of time. My God, time goes so fast with you guys. I wanted to flag for you. Here's a question, right, from Mariam Zaidi. Ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt all had class differences, but which one was more flexible in terms of between the other two civilizations? So class difference, and which had the most flexibility. Hello, Anna from Fort Worth, Texas. Kind of great that you could join us. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here joining this live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. We'll come to Australia. I would love to, like kind of thing. We're going to have to make this happen one of these days, Judy. Thank you very much. Great question, though, at the moment from Mariam Zaidi about ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt. All had class differences, but which was the most flexible? I was giving this some thought, and while in ancient Greece we do very occasionally hear stories of a slave who makes it to be free, and then not only goes on from becoming free, but actually gets given citizenship in ancient Athens. And then not even that, he actually grows to become one of the richest, perhaps the richest person in ancient Athens. He was a banker. The family of Passion was his name in the 4th century. So there are these miracle stories, but they are very, very much the absolute kind of exception to the rule. In Egypt, I'm trying to think of any that come to mind of something similar, and I can't. In Rome, there was at least the greatest, I think, potential for vertical movement up through the different class differences, that slaves did become freemen could become respected businessmen, and certainly while there's some kind of resistance from the older aristocratic elite families to those of the sort of the new people coming up through the ranks, Cicero being one of the kind of most famous examples of being one of these sort of new boys on the block that was constantly resented by some of the old aristocratic families. It feels to me like the Roman world has the greatest flexibility across the different class differences. Not to say that they ever got rid of class difference, which they absolutely didn't. And then we've had a great question as well, so thank you very much for that, Miriam. And then we've had a great question from Katerina Pinto, who was in Athens recently and went into the museum in the Agora, which is in the beautiful rebuilt Stoa there on one side of the Agora that was rebuilt by the Americans, and saw in the museum a shield and was asking what was written on it. Now, if you Google Spartan shields Athenian Agora, you'll see some pictures of this pretty quickly. And these are an extraordinary collection of shields that have survived from the 5th century BC. And they were a really important part of Athenian trumpet blowing, because they date to and come from a battle. They're shields, Spartan shields, that have been taken by the victorious Athenians, presumably of dead or captured Spartans, and they have been brought back to Athens and displayed as war booty, as the kind of the prize of victory. Now, we all know the kind of reputation of the Spartans as the heroic warriors, the warriors who never surrender to the Thermopylae, they fight to the death, they are unbeatable. So the idea that you could actually have captured Spartan shields on display within your own city was a propaganda coup of immense proportion. And you're absolutely right, Katerina, that there is writing on it, and this is actually writing that's been added by the Athenians after they've brought them back and then put them on display in Athens. So there's talk that some were put in one of the stoas of the Agora, the Stoa Poikile, others were probably hung on the route up to the Acropolis and to the Parthenon, sort of glimmering in the sunlight, captured war booty, these bronze shields glimmering in the sunlight, and they had written on them that the Athenians from the Lacedaemonians, the Spartans, Pylos. So they're making it very clear that these were shields taken from the Spartans, and where in Pylos, and that's actually down in the Peloponnese, very close to Sparta itself. So this is a victory that the Athenians were able to effect against the Spartans actually in 425 BC, very, very close to their home. It really was an extraordinary moment when the Athenians proved that the Spartans were anything but invincible. So thank you very much for pointing out that incredible piece of archaeology that has stayed with us. Let's do very, very quickly some news from around the ancient world. So many of you might have seen these extraordinary reports in the paper that the head of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, is comparing himself, or revealing his love for, and sort of implicitly comparing himself to, the first emperor of Rome, Augustus. So it turns out that Mark Zuckerberg has a sort of real love for Augustus, admiration for him, and sees him as a man who sort of, brought a divided world together and established this Pax Augusta, this era of grand peace and harmony. From my perspective, when you sort of see that kind of comparison, one of the things Augustus had to do was become sole ruler of a realm that had absolutely decided long ago it did not want a sole ruler. Rome had expelled its final king and had been a republic for many centuries. And so Augustus had to walk a very fine line as being a sole ruler, but never really calling himself that. So he was always known as primus inter pares, the first among equals, and was a very delicate ruler in the sense that he, behind the scenes, controlling all the power, an absolute power megalomaniac, but on the surface, in terms of his public face, being just a shepherd, a guide, a help to the community moving forward. And if that's what Mark Zuckerberg wants to be, then I think it says something quite deep and meaningful about Facebook and its role that it wants to have in our lives in an ongoing. So I would be quite wary about Mark Zuckerberg's love of Augustus. Vindalanda as well. Hello from Hungary, Akos. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Do send your questions in. If we don't get to them that you're asking now on the live Q&A, they will go on the list. And don't forget that as we gave out a prize last week, every month we'll be giving a prize for the best question asked. So do please keep sending in your questions. It's absolutely fantastic to have them and to have a chance to answer some of them with you. I'm so sorry we just can't get to more. A bit more classics in the news. Vindalanda again. Vindalanda is a site so close to my heart. I know we talked about the horse manure that had been found at Vindalanda last week. This week it was the anniversary of one of the extraordinary Vindalanda wooden tablets that have survived with the writing on, that we are able to sort of get this wonderfully textured view of life, what life was like sitting in this camp. And if you remember, it was the anniversary of the birthday of the one of the kind of senior wives in the camp, Claudia Severa, who we have a letter surviving where she's writing to her sister, inviting her to her birthday party, which was going to be on the 11th of September, back in around about 100 AD. So we say happy birthday to Claudia Severa. And then this came in following Ancient Invisible Cities, Cairo, and me talking about the pyramids last week, from Frank Donner. And I just have to tell you about it. If any of you in the neighborhood, you have to go and see this. So he was saying that in his city, which is Cottbus, which is in the Brandenburg area in Germany, there was in the 1860s a prince called Prince Pückler, who in what is now Branitzer Park, decided to build two pyramids. One was where he was buried with his horse, and the other was where his wife was buried. So she didn't get to be buried with him. He decided to be buried with his horse instead. But you can still visit these pyramids that are there in Cottbus in Branitzer Park today. They're apparently unique in Europe. Although they did remind me, in Rome, obviously, there is on the outskirts of the city of ancient Rome, there is a famous tomb, the tomb of Cestius, which is also in the shape of a pyramid. This guy was a Roman who had lots of dealings in Roman Egypt, and he decided to have a grave, a tomb in the shape of a pyramid as well. So kind of certainly kind of in more recent history, it sounds like Cottbus has two pyramids, but there's following on in a tradition that dates back all the way to ancient Rome. Well, it's been an absolute joy to have you with us for this Q&A again. So we've done some news from the ancient world. Don't forget, news tomorrow is the next round, if you're in the UK, of Ancient Invisible Cities. Hello, Nicola, how are you doing? Ancient Invisible Cities, and we're heading to Athens. This was one of the most extraordinary programs that I've made. We go into locations that have never been filmed before on television because of the sheer difficulties of reaching them. In this program, you'll see me abseiling 16 meters down a shaft deep underground to an underground aqueduct. You'll see me crawling through tiny underground tunnels and these underground mines we go and visit, and you can see a clip of that right now on the BBC website. You see me diving underwater to explore ancient remains that are underwater, as well as working with great archaeological and excavation projects like the Zia Harbour project that are surveying the remains of the ancient harbours underneath the modern harbours, working harbours of Athens. So I really hope you can tune in for that. It's on BBC Two tomorrow night, Friday 14th of September, 9 p.m, and then we'll be on the iPlayer afterwards, and you'll also be able to watch it over Amazon Video immediately afterwards as well. So do please tune in for that. I'll be live tweeting along with the episode, so ask any questions you might have. Invisible Cities, hashtag Invisible Cities BBC. Susie, love Athens, can't wait. Great, I'm so glad. And also, most importantly, to tell you about for next week, We won't be doing a Q&A next Thursday, which is the 20th. Instead, we are going to move the Q&A to Friday, the 21st of September, to coincide with the day of the last episode going live of Ancient Invisible Cities, which is Istanbul. So next week, Friday, the 21st of September, and at 4 p.m. UK time, we will be doing a Q&A, and we'll be doing it all kind of focused around Ancient Invisible Cities. So all your questions about the making of the series, behind the scenes, about Istanbul, about Athens, about Cairo, the places we visited, get those coming in via the Facebook page, and we will be answering them, and I'll be telling you a few more behind the scenes stories from the filming of that series as well. So I really hope you can join me next week, Friday the 21st of September at 4 p.m. And then after that, and the weeks after, we'll go back to our normal routine, but just keep an eye on the Facebook page, and the events will be posted. Remember to sign up for live notifications, Facebook live notifications, and then you'll always know when we're going live to have a chat. It's been a huge privilege and pleasure to have you with us this week, and I hope you all have a fantastic end to the week and weekend ahead. So thank you very much indeed. This was the live Q&A on the 13th of September with me, Professor Michael Scott, and we'll see you next week.